Welcome to Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension.
Welcome to another podcast episode of Merkaba Chakras. I'm your host, Vaughn Galt, and today we explore one of my favorite topics in Buddhism, which is the Toku children. So, in pop culture, Toku children are commonly referred to as star seeds, indigos, crystals, and a variety of different names. However, in Buddhism, they have been around since our ancient past. You know them. Yeshua ben Yosef was one of them. And we have a very wonderful history of teaching these Toku children how to use their skills and live the best life they possibly can in this incarnation. So they are old, high vibe souls directly from source, from other planets and dimensions much higher in consciousness than Earth currently is at. And their mission is simply to raise consciousness while having an enjoyable life doing it. So, interestingly enough, there seems to be an influx of them incarnating at this time. So, we're going to explore what's going on with Sherri Divband. So, Sherri, welcome to Merkaba Chakras.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, so I wanted, before we kind of get into your work and our lively discussion about parenting these children and um, all the different adventures that come with them, I wanted to share a video that I took over the weekend. And it's my daughter dancing underneath a double rainbow. And the reason why I wanted to share this because in Buddhism, a double rainbow is an auspicious symbol of
Mm.
turning of the tides, of something positive coming through. So, and my daughter loves rainbows. And so let me share this video really quick. And this is right in front of our home. Um, go. Okay. So do you see the video?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, so I'm just going to, it's a quick 10-second, and you see the double rainbow right here, you guys. It is so beautiful. And we live in a convergence zone where a lot of the weather comes through first through the San Juan Islands and Whidbey Island and so forth, and then goes right through the sound into Seattle. So we get all the anomalous weather first, and what typically happens is you get aside from the orcas and the orcas and the whales coming through and the seals, you also get these beautiful rainbows that come through very often. And I just walk out my front door and I see them. But this one really just um, was so beautiful. I couldn't stop but sit there and drink my morning coffee with it. So here it is. There's my daughter down there dancing.
Ah, wow, look at that. Wow.
And there it is. And
I love
it's just for you guys who are like, I blinked and I missed it. I'm gonna do one more time for you guys, okay?
it.
That's awesome. So I
Beautiful.
had so much. So I wanted to share that because um, double rainbows are auspicious, and it's auspicious times in which we are gifted with so many of these Tokyo children. So now let's talk about what they are and what they bring. So before we dig into your work, Sherri, can you tell us your story for how you got into this work in the first place? Because this is not the normal career path for most people.
No, it's not. And my story is unique, just like most people's. And I'm an only child. We moved around a lot, and so I was always really in tune with animals. They were my best friends. I would communicate with them, and so naturally, I wanted to be a veterinarian, and so that was my career path. I was going to work with animals. So I went in high school, got my first job working at a vet hospital, and I have a really good work ethic. So when I'm interested in something, like I'm very focused, very driven, very motivated. So I was even going on my days off. I was volunteering on the days off just because I wanted to, like, immerse myself in the field. Um, and I ended up really loving nursing, actually.
Mm.
It was not the veterinary medicine that interested me so much. It was the nursing, the caring of the animals, that the nurses got to do, which in the veterinary field, that's called a veterinary technician. And so it's essentially the same thing. So I ended up doing that, and I worked in the veterinary field as a registered nurse for, I mean, going on, if I'm still counting now, 20 years almost. And I loved it. I worked in the intensive care setting for a really long time. That was my passion. I worked in general practice, exotics, and then I worked at the zoo for the last 10 years, near my area, because I wanted to work with the exotic animals. I'm really
Mm.
obsessed with elephants and wildlife, and so I wanted to be close to them, and so I did that for a long time. So throughout the path of working with animals, I discovered energy healing, and I was never interested in doing energy healing, not even for myself. It was for, I wanted to learn for the animals, because I worked with
Mm.
animals in such a critical, they were just in bad shape in the ICU and surgeries and all sorts of things, and I thought there has to be a way we can help them aside from all of this that we're already doing. And I really looked into energy medicine. So I
Mm.
learned Reiki for animals, and I did it on animals for a long time. I had a side business. I had clients and worked with pets and went to their house. And it wasn't until I started having my own children. My first
Mm.
child came really young, when I was young. And so I would have to say it inspired me, but really it wasn't until I started having the other children, that when I was a little bit older, that I said, people really need this, more than, just like, not more than the animals, but just as
Yeah.
much. And my children were the ones that made me think about outside of the animals, and what the world needs. What does the world need right now? People really need to understand that, about energy and vibration and frequency and emotions, and all, and how it ties into your wellness. And so I started slowly branching out and working with people. And then I really became passionate about it. I worked with, I learned on transpersonal hypnotherapy. I
Mm.
did hypnobirthing. So I taught women how to have, a more peaceful, calm birth using self hypnosis. So I did that. So I was kind
Mm.
of like dabbling all over the place, all the while still doing the veterinary medicine. And then at one point, I really decided I was done with the veterinary medicine. I mean, I've been doing it for so long. I was getting kind of burnt out, and I really just wanted to focus on people. And so I slowly started transitioning and started working with clients. And it was that point that I started working with parents,
Mm.
and they would always talk to me about their children, and the amazing things that their children were doing, or the gifts that they had,
Like
or
what? Like what? What were some
uh,
of the common things you were hearing from your
the
clients?
back then. So this was, 6 years ago. So it was more along the lines of, I know my child is spiritually gifted. I don't know why, but they're very special. They have a heightened sense of awareness. When they look at me and anyone in the room, I feel like they're looking through me. They're so intelligent,
Mm.
they're so smart. They knew something was special about them. And of course, all parents say, I know that everyone says their child is special, but I'm telling you, my child really is different than any child
Mhm.
I've ever seen. And I started seeing it over and over with a lot of different people. I started then working with the children, and then I noticed my own children, and how unique they all were individually different, and they were all very different. And so then I started channeling. Throughout that period, I was channeling my guides.
Mhm. And did you learn, because you learned the Reiki, and then the various hypnosis modalities
Mhm.
for energy healing and to consciousness. But then the channeling, did that just come naturally to you one day, or did you like learn it from different teachers of that modality?
Yeah, no, I'm self-taught.
Okay.
I was motivated, and I said I'm putting the intention out there, and I did meditation and did certain
Mm.
things, and I found out, surprisingly, it came really easy. And I started getting all of these downloads, and I started writing down messages, and it was really beautiful and inspiring because I would get so many beautiful messages. And they told me that I would be working with children. It was really important. Then the cool thing is, so at that point, I had two kids. One was 7 years apart, two boys. And I knew I always wanted a third, but it wasn't, it was kind of like, floating out there somewhere. And it wasn't really at the front of my mind. And this beautiful soul came to me as she introduced herself as Layla. And she said, I'm your daughter. I will be
Mhm.
born within the next year. I'm going to teach and guide you. I am part of the Rainbow Children. She explained to me what that was. She explained to me, I've learned so much from her. She explained to me what each of the other two boys I had and the different types of children, and how they tie in with Dolores Cannon's waves of volunteers, and how these New Earth children are special. And she told me exactly what she was here to do.
Mhm.
And I channeled her when I got pregnant. Every single week throughout my entire pregnancy, I channeled a message from her and what was relevant at the time for me to know. And it wasn't just information for myself, it was about humanity, about ascension, and where we're moving, and a higher frequency, higher density, all of those things. And so she taught me a lot of things. So I think it was a combination of parents coming to me for help and guidance through their sessions, and then
Mhm.
my own children that really encouraged me to focus on the kids. And that's kind of how it led to that.
Mm. So we'll get into the topic of the New Earth children. So, which is New Earth is a pop culture. It was popularized by author Dolores Cannon, and other authors as well. But it's basically like a higher frequency Earth. So, who are the New Earth children in your understanding from your background?
Yeah, and you're right. The terms, you can call them a lot of different things. And Dolores
Mm-hmm.
kind of got us going with they're the third wave.
Mm-hmm.
They're the New Earth children. And really what that means and how I identify them as are high vibrational, very evolved souls, many of which have never been here. They're
Mm-hmm.
first timers. They came to this earth to anchor us into a higher frequency as we evolve, and we go through this ascension or this great awakening. They come here from their different planets, star systems where they come from, with their master level knowledge of whatever it is that they're here to contribute in our evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And they come here most oftentimes knowing exactly what they're here to do. And these children are fifth, sixth, seventh, sometimes ninth density beings, some of which don't even have physical bodies where they came from. So they actually had to train in certain places like Arcturus and Pleiades and places like that to even understand what it's like to have a body again, and what Earth, like almost like Earth school to prepare them.
Mm-hmm.
So New Earth children, you know, people get confused because they're not special or unique in the sense that they're better than anybody else here. They're just here equipped with a very specific important job to do to help us through this ascension. But they've been coming for hundreds, if not longer,
Thousands.
thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that the Earth population and the collective consciousness hasn't been ready for them until this exact moment. So this has been
Mm-hmm.
in generations of time of preparation and evolution, so that the light workers before them, that perhaps are me and you and others that have had many other lives kind of building up to this point, then these kids come in and they are just, I keep using the word anchor because that's what I've been told. They really are the ones that will shift paradigms, break things down, open up our hearts, remind us about compassion, love, kindness, all of that. And they will anchor us into fifth density and higher so that we can evolve.
Well, let me ask you something. Fifth density and higher, is it out there or is it in your consciousness?
I think it depends on your perspective and your perception of it, right? I think it has an actual physical, but then there's also your evolution and your consciousness, and what frequency are you in? What are you resonating at? What's your vibration? So it's individual, and then there's a collective consciousness, and that contributes to our physicality. And when we're in that third density, a lower vibration, where we have a lot of the population that's not awake yet, and not keen to a lot of all of this, and this perhaps may even trigger some of them that they don't understand yet, but they will. That's a third density construct. It's lower vibrational. it's based out of fear, power, struggle, all the lower vibrational emotions. When you go up to higher frequencies, where Earth actually started out in fifth density eons ago, before everything shifted, we were never meant to be in that third density construct. So we're going back into that fifth density physicality as the consciousness is, if that's how you say it, evolve collectively. So it's kind of a combination of the two.
Yeah, so these esoteric concepts could get used and confused by a lot of people who listen to them, who learn about them, and they get manipulated into 3D issues, world issues for whatever the agenda or the motivation is. Um, how how can parents raise these children with discernment and boundaries so that they are not manipulated or misused
Yeah, that's a really great
for
question.
certain political agendas, social agendas, whatever, because Source has no opinion on what decisions you make as part of your life lesson. They're yours to have. But
Exactly.
these children are still children.
Mhm.
So, how do adults raise these children and have them as part of life without um, painting them with their 3D issues? I guess that's the way I would say it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the $1 million question. And I don't know that there's one straightforward answer, but there's a lot of different things and a lot of different ways you can come at that. We are still in a very third density environment that's low vibrational. There's a lot of political agendas, and we have all the social media and a lot of these programming and manipulation happening that is infiltrating our children's mind, which is what is frustrating. So when we have children that are watching TikTok and playing video games, it's all the agenda is to disconnect them from their higher self, to disconnect them from Mother Earth. We have been trained and programmed to not connect with our higher self, not to go outside, not to seek answers and ground yourself, and how to do that. So the more spiritually aware and centered the parents are and grounded, then they can teach their children to be more grounded, more centered, more balanced. And the way they do that is to teach them discernment, to teach them to connect to their higher self, to teach them to be who they are and not conform to what their society is telling them is the popular thing at the time. But genuinely giving them the space to be themselves, and that's the problem. But here lies
Right.
the conundrum, because previous generations, parents were taught, or I'm sorry, they were raised that you need to be a good little girl, good little boy, listen, talk when speak when spoken to, and they needed to fit them in this exact box because that's the box they were placed in, and that's the box
Hmm.
their parents were placed in, and so on. And so they are not allowing these children to be themselves. And part of New Earth Children, part of their process is to come here and break down those boxes and shift the paradigms and break everything down, because they are different and they don't fit in those boxes, and they know it. And so they articulate it, and some of it comes across as stubborn, headstrong, having temper tantrums, they're
Hmm.
angry, or older generations perceive them to be brats, or whatever the label you want to call
Hmm.
them. And there's a delicate balance there, because part of the reason they're doing that is because that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed
Hmm.
to shift our thinking. They're supposed to make you uncomfortable, so you rethink certain things. Because you've been programmed your whole life doesn't mean that it's right. So they're coming in encouraging parents and other people and teachers and friends and society to go outside of themselves and figure out what it is that really brings them joy, what brings them happiness, not because you're told, but
Right.
because you find it yourself. And so these children are trying to encourage that, but it's really difficult, because when I work with these kids, and I shouldn't use the word kids, when I work with these children, the biggest frustration they have, from the ages of newborn and 6 or 7 years old, because I
Right.
communicate with a lot of them telepathically, as I'm sure you do as well. Um, and they're meaning they speak with their higher self to get the true essence of what it is that they're trying to
Hmm.
articulate, what they want to say, because they can't do that as babies or 1 year olds. They don't have the words to articulate it. And they say that they recognize the density and how uncomfortable it is to be in a body, but they're used to instant manifestation where they're from. They're used to being able to just
Hmm.
teleport, telekinesis, all of that is has almost like been taken from them. And
Mhm.
then they're put in this dense, third density, heavy physical body that they're not used to, in an environment full of emotions that they've never experienced themselves, of, the lower vibration of fear, anger, worry, sadness, those emotions they're not used to. So they really are fish out of water, and they struggle in those early years because they're trying to adapt, and they're uncomfortable. And a lot of them will tell me, I want to go home. I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
I changed my mind. I want to go back. And, of course, that's kind of the initial reaction. But as we talk through it and we recognize, well, this was the journey, how
Mhm.
can we help you adapt, and things like that, then there are tools we can provide for them to help their transition process to be a little bit more easy for them. And that's where the parents come in, because it's vital for the parents to be on board and understand and recognize why their children are acting certain ways, or why they're struggling, or why they don't fit in with other kids, or why they're not playing with with toys,
Mhm.
why they're a little bit weird, in the eyes of other people. There's a reason for it. And then maybe perhaps just taking a moment, stepping back and saying, okay, wait, there's a reason, and understanding. We need to learn to understand our kids, because they're not all one size fits all. I
Mhm.
have three completely different children that act differently, that require me to talk to them differently. I have to punish differently, in a way that is the way I talk to them. It has to be.
Right.
And the only reason I know how to do that is because I have been, and this is a journey. Okay, so I'm not perfect. I'm not, I do yell at my
Mhm.
kids here and there. Like it's an ongoing journey. But I've had to learn to watch and observe my children on how they react to things that I do, or the punishments I give, or how I
Mhm.
speak with them. And then I realized that they're completely different.
Yeah.
And you can't just assume that it's one size fits all. And it's a lot of work for a lot of parents, and parents are tired and frustrated and going
Yeah.
through their own stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So, personally, I've never really had any problems having full conversations with these children. I have not met a child that actually is autistic, Asperger's, ADHD, or anything else, whatever they're labeled at, because when I talk to them, they talk to me just fine. They have full conversations with me. The
Mhm.
doctors wonder how, or the parents wonder how, and I'm like, what's the problem with this kid? I don't understand it. He's having a conversation with me just fine. However, many others have. So they are labeled as ADHD, Asperger's, autistic, you name it, and then they are prescribed whatever they're prescribed medically for the ailment in which they've been um, diagnosed as. So I'm not a medical doctor, but um, if if these are the ailments that they are struggling with, then it should go across the board to everybody. But sometimes, many times, these children talk to the people they want to talk to and nobody else.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I don't know sure if it's a wavelength thing or anything else. Like my nephew, he only has conversations with me and his grandfather on a
Mm.
regular basis. And then maybe he's learned over the years to maybe talk a little bit, but most of the part he just is in his own little world. But because of that, they want to label. So, why are so many labeled with these? What have you found? Why
Yeah.
are they labeled with these titles and
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. And we, unfortunately, we live in a world where, if something doesn't fit, then they have to create a box for it, so they could check the box and put people in categories and things like that. And so and I'm not a doctor as either. And so I offer an energetic perspective. And the reason I know what I know is because I've worked with so many children that
Mhm.
are ADHD, autistic, Asperger's, and they've told me the stuff that I know is because they have told me this is what's
Mhm.
going on with me. And I started kind of documenting it, and I'm like, wow, this makes a lot of sense to me. And so the perspective I have is their actual journey. And so to me, it boils down to I'm sorry, the way I could explain it the most is it boils down to vibration and their frequency
Mhm.
is a huge aspect of it. So let's take ADHD, for instance. ADHD children that are labeled that, of course, they're not there. There is no such thing as ADHD, but that's what they're called because they need to come up with some terminology for their behavior, right? But
Okay.
they are hyperactive. Okay, let's start with that. The reason is because let's say these fifth, sixth, seventh, ninth density beings, are coming into this physical body, their vibration is so vast, and it fluctuates and it shifts by the moment. So they are rapid firing in their brain,
Right.
processing continuously, and they are right most of the time. They're right brain thinkers. So you
Mm-hmm.
can so you cannot, they're very creative. They are thinking about five, six, seven things at a time. You cannot get them to focus on one thing. So in traditional schools, when these children are made to sit still and in these terribly lit classrooms with the fluorescent lighting, and
Mm-hmm.
they're placed with a bunch of other children that are sitting still, so they already feel
Right.
uncomfortable and awkward, and they have to focus on what a teacher is saying. So they're listening, but then they're thinking about 10 other things, and then they fidget because they can't sit still because they have so much energy. They need to move around.
Mm-hmm.
They're rapid firing in their brains, and so then they get lost with what the teacher's saying because they veered off to something else, and then they shut down, and because they can't catch up because the teacher's
Right.
already moved. And then the teacher perceives the child and calls them out in front of the class as being disruptive, not listening, and it's really their inability to focus in a for long
Right.
periods of, and they're very right brain. So Asperger's, let's say that, let's give that an example for that. Asperger's are generally star children, so not starseed. Starseed is a over term, a generalized term of souls that are not from Earth
Mm-hmm.
that come here. And so the stars are a category. Again, we're categorizing them loosely, not to label them, but just to explain that a majority of those that fit in this category, which are star, are very left brain. They're highly intelligent. Those are the ones that come from like Andromeda, Arcturus, Sirius B, Sirius A, who are higher density, and they are the ones that come here that are innovators, inventors. They're the ones that are breaking down all the paradigms and rebuilding them in a better way. So they have advanced knowledge of technology, all the things that are thousands of years ahead of what we have currently. And so they're very focused, they're very introverted, they're very quiet. They don't particularly like childish type of games or activities. They don't fit in with other kids. They're uncomfortable with a lot of different people because they
Mm-hmm.
read their energy, and so they are labeled as Asperger's, and it's almost like it's a bad thing. But these children are so hyper intelligent for a good reason, because they have a very important mission to do here.
Right.
um, and so they just don't fit in. That's their issue. It's not a problem, that's just their issue.
So question with that. So as a parent and as, you know, obviously an adult into society with these children, obviously you're going to have to teach them how to read, and they're going to need to learn the basic fundamentals, which takes time to sit there and learn the process to learn how to read or to do basic mathematics, you know, basic skills. So how does how do people help them to focus on the lessons so that they get the basics so they can use that to create whatever invention they want to create down the road when they become older. Um, you know, create innovative solutions when they get older. They're going to need the basics. So how do you teach these children who may struggle with focus to learn the basics in school? Because they're going to need to learn them.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Well, and I just want to point out that those that are labeled Asperger's generally don't have an issue with that. They are they're hyper focused. So they do just fine in school. If anything, they become bored because they're not
Mm,
challenged enough. So those are the children that either need to skip grades, or when I work one-on-one, a lot of them tell me they need to be what's the word? Stimulated
stimulated? Mm,
stimulated outside of school. So give them math to do. If they're the ones that enjoy math, give them math. Or if they really love to read books, give them more advanced books. Put them in science camp, put them in space
mm,
camp if you can afford it, of course. But they need to be stimulated, and when they're not, they become bored, and then they start to act out. So
right.
Asperger's tend to be very intelligent and very focused. The ones that have ADHD, that they have the issue with focusing because of their high vibration, and they're not able to center and balance themselves and focus like the Asperger's, because Asperger's are children are more left brain, ADHD are more right brain, more
So what
creative.
are some of the activities that you would do with somebody who has a child who has quote unquote ADHD or just hyper
non-focused, I mean, do you just give them a lot of art projects so or
Yeah,
meditation, a lot of exercise in the woods, something just kind of like, you
exactly.
know,
Exactly.
slow
So
down the
they
energy so they could focus?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So you, depending on their creativity and what their interests are, give them crafts. They need, it's more about creativity. Do not give them a coloring book where they have to color within the lines. They have to be creative. They need to have craft projects or things that are multi-layered, where they're
Yeah.
using their imagination. They're painting, they're drawing, they're making clay projects. So that's the art. And then not all of them are in
Yeah.
art. So we can take them out of the art, and then those are the ones that really are really into sports, where they run
Mhm.
around and they do really well, and they do well because they're active, they're outside, they're running around. And so it's about finding what it is that stimulates them differently than the Asperger's, but these guys tend to need to be more movement involved.
The
So
Asperger's need more movement, or the
no, I'm
ADHD?
sorry. ADHD need more
They
because
need more
they're more,
movement.
yeah. So
Okay.
that you can't expect them to sit still for a long period of time and work on a project. They need to take breaks, which is why,
Right.
my one of my kids struggled with school initially, and I put him in Montessori school initially because I
Mm-hmm.
felt that it was the most kind of collaborative with children's development than anything
Mm-hmm.
I've ever seen. And I feel like well, things are changing with the school systems, and that's a whole nother thing, but
Mm-hmm.
it allows children at their developmental level to work within certain confines of what they are need to learn, and then they take breaks, and then they go and do something else, and then they go outside, and then they come back and they eat a snack. So they're giving them the ability to learn in shorter periods of time, and then they take breaks, they have movement, they use their creative energy. So the issue with our education system is that again, just like with the parenting, it's not one
Mm-hmm.
size fits all, and we need to create a system where the curriculum is more what's the word I'm trying to come up with,
Specific to their interests.
yeah, exactly, like
Mm-hmm.
it's catered to what they need and how they learn, and not just one size fits all. And
Right.
that's
Right.
where I see things moving to, but right now unfortunately we haven't gotten there yet, but a lot of these schools are popping up all over the place,
Right.
and you know who it is. They're the parents that have these children, and nobody can provide for them what they need, and so they're opening up their own thing, or teachers who don't like the current education system, and they agree with what I'm saying and what many are saying, that these kids need to be taught differently, and the structure needs to shift, and so they go out and they start to open their own thing.
Right, right. That sounds like we actually have like a high school here in Seattle, not in the city of Seattle, but in one of the suburbs called Foster High School. And and I- and basically, I'm not sure if they still do this now, but a long time ago, they would let the students organize their curriculum around the vocation or around the topic that they're interested in. So if they wanted to learn computer programming and really get good at that, for example, um, they would cater their whole high school experience around those type of courses. If they
Mhm.
wanted to learn how to do engineering, then they would design whole curriculums around just engineering. And of course, there'll be some elements of mathematics and English because you're going to need that to do whatever it is you decide to do. But um, what it has done is by the time that the child graduates high school, they practically have a career underneath their belt.
Mhm.
Okay, they like spent most of their high school years learning a career, and then when they're done, they're pretty much ready to expedite what they have been practicing. And so you have a lot that opened up their own mechanic shop out of high school or in college. You have a lot that decide to go into entrepreneurship and start e-commerce ventures, et cetera. And that's why a lot of these are much younger entrepreneurs, because they didn't just pick it up naturally. They focus so much on their interests when they were young adults in high school and middle school most of their life, that by the time they got out of it, they have basically have become a subject matter expert in that thing that they really like to focus on. And so is that what you're like also kind of encouraging people to go to, is to find their focus area and then just take it all the way?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been shown this by a lot of these children through our sessions, where they'll show me in Andromeda what their school looked like, how it was outside, how they were taught. They would group these kids exactly how you're saying, in the areas that interest them, and then they would learn that with their peers that were interested in the same thing, and then they would grow together. So the foundation is important. So our elementary school, let's say, should be
Hmm.
focused more on the basics, math, writing, English, reading, those types of things, because like you said, it's fundamental, it's very important. But then
Hmm.
they should also be learning what the ascension is, how to meditate, how to calm yourself down through different modalities of tapping and mindful breathing and yoga.
Hmm.
So all of the things that we are talking about now as adults, and I'm teaching parents how to do, and some now children are learning. These are things that should be taught in the classroom as well, so that
Hmm.
by the time they're in middle school and high school, then they go in and they kind of have an idea of what they're interested in, and then they start to go down these pathways
Hmm.
where they are kind of, like you said, just groomed for what it is that they're interested in. And colleges, I see shifting to more trade schools. So
Yeah.
I don't see these large universities being around much longer. How
Hmm.
long, I don't know, because time is very
It's
relative right
relative.
now,
Hmm.
and the timelines keep shifting. But
Hmm.
well, let's just say the endpoint that I see, and I've also been shown, is there will be no more 4-year degrees. Like you said, they'll come out of high school and they'll already have a lot. And if they want more, then they're going to go to a 2-year program or a 1-year program or a 9-month program, whatever, in
Yeah.
specific mechanics or electrical vehicles, or
Further develop career development paths. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
None of this wasting 2 years on prerequisites and things that we know the kids don't care about, and it's just a waste
Hmm.
of money and time for everybody.
Hmm.
That's all going away, and I honestly feel like if it's not free, it will be very reasonably priced so that anybody can afford to go. So we're not
Yeah.
cutting out all the people that can't afford it, or don't, they don't want to be coming out of school with all this debt. It won't be an issue anymore, and so they'll really get
Yeah.
to focus on what they want to do, or even schools on how to be an entrepreneur. Do you
Yeah.
want to open your own business? Let me teach you, let me guide you on how to do that, so then when they finish their I don't even want to say graduate, when they finish whatever it is that their classes, they know exactly how to do it, and then they go off and they do their own thing, they become their own bosses,
Right.
you know
Yeah. So it's really more results focused education,
exactly.
not just gonna go in and try to figure out how I'm gonna figure out what to do with myself, and hopefully I land on something that works, which is
Exactly.
typically what it used to be. But it's really more results focused. So let me give you an example of because we're getting into the common traits that you found in these. I call them toku, which is basically a Buddhist word for all high vibe,
Yeah.
everything above. So, um, but the parents, okay. So I'm a parent. My daughter that you saw in the video is very, very artistic. She knows how to read. She knows how to do some basic math. She's in kindergarten. And there's a lot of focus tutoring just to make sure that she learns the basics, but she learned the basics. But we do let her and give her a lot of opportunities to make arts. And she creates 3D art out of construction paper with the pop-up person and then all the stuff that goes along with it. So she creates a whole pop-up city out of construction paper and she draws every little details. And so because she loves that so much, I source out a 3D printer so that she can make her pop-up community out of a 3D printer. Okay.
That's
She's in
incredible.
kindergarten. So anyways, but we're learning. And as she goes further into it, if she's still interested, then we'll look at ways to kind of further foster that creativity. We do not give her any instructions. We asks for help. We give her some ideas, but for the most part, she comes up with it on her own. And it's not just like I'm going to set up a little movie with some of my teddy bears. We come downstairs and we see literally her iPad is the theater, and all the tables have been moved and all the chairs are now this big amphitheater, and there's every single one has a toy on it with a snack. So now she's sitting in the middle in like the living room has been converted into this theater with like all the chairs. And so it's like it's not a small thing, it's a big production. So I'm just giving you an idea of the scale in which the creativity is off the charts. So um not that everybody can go and just go get a 3D printer for their kindergartner, but how can parents who notice these phenomenons, okay, how can they um kind of foster these traits and kind of help them to find a focus, whatever it is, and just kind of drive that focus home so that by the time they become adults, um, they are doing what they wanted to do and they're successful in doing it instead of spinning the wheels like we typically do. We spin our wheels trying to figure out what to do with ourselves. So
Yeah.
since it's so highly focused, so well,
Yeah.
can you talk about the parents?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the biggest thing, the two biggest things is one, exposure. Exposing them to different things to find out what it is that they like, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. You don't need a 3D printer is amazing. I wish I had one, but if you don't have one, then there are other things that you can do. Encouraging them, and then and just being supportive, and allowing them that the creative freedom to
Mm,
then, if they find something that they like. My daughter is the most creative person, and like constantly she wants to take all the art supplies out, and I give her everything she needs, whatever she wants: construction paper, glue, color pencils, crayons, watercolor paint, regular paint. I mean, whatever
mhm.
it is that she needs. And a lot of this stuff is not that expensive. You could get it at the cheaper
Yeah,
store. And I provide her the materials, and she is happy with just sitting there and cutting things and taping things and
yeah,
creating things. And that's her thing. And so what I do for her is I just allow her the freedom to do it as much as possible. Better that than being on the iPad all day. So allowing her the freedom, creative freedom to do that, encouraging it and supporting it. But not all kids are into crafts. My son is like, meh. He'll play with, he'll join her for about 5 minutes, and then he loses interest really
yeah,
quickly.
yeah. My son's like that too.
So he does much better doing other activities. He wants to be outside. He wants to do other stuff. He wants to jump on the trampoline. He wants to go in the swimming pool. He's much more earthbound. He wants to be outside. So I'm like, okay, well, let's go outside. So the idea is just allowing them to figure out what it is that they like. Some kids,
Mhm,
I went to the park the other day with my kids, and this little girl was my daughter's age. She was 6 years old, and this girl was
mhm,
reading a book that had to have been fifth grade level
mhm.
chapter book. I mean, I was just impressed. And she was at the park reading her book. And her mom kept yelling at her, saying, "You put the book down. You read too much. All you do is read, play." And this poor girl kept having to put her book down, and you could tell she was struggling. She did not understand, like, she didn't want to play outside. She was uncomfortable playing with the other kids, so she kind of just like walked around looking at the floor. And I felt so bad for this girl, because I was like, let her read her books. If you want her to have outside time, then have her read outside under the tree, so she's still
Mhm.
outside. And if you want her to get exercise, then create a family exercise much later on that she's comfortable
Yeah.
with. She's
Yeah.
not with a bunch of strangers. So it's all about just being observant and
Mhm. Mhm.
watching your kids, and figuring out what they like, and then trying to adapt yourself to it, instead of trying to make your children adapt to what you want them
Right.
to do.
Well, in that specific situation with that daughter, that mother daughter, maybe the daughter had a little bit of anxiety making new friends.
That was
You ever
part of it.
think about that? Maybe she just needs some talk tracks on how to say, "Hi, my name is blah blah blah. Can we play?" And
Yeah.
maybe a little role play or
Hmm.
something. Oftentimes, what I've noticed with of all children is that in case unless they've already had experience doing something before, they just don't have the talk tracks and they don't have the know-how on how to navigate certain situations that are unfamiliar to them. And this is how we all learn, we learn through trial and error, we learn through rejection, all that kind of stuff. But some of these some children, they just if you just role play with them different scenarios and you give them ideas, that's all they need. And they're like, okay, I think I'm ready to go. And then maybe they're not so scared of going and playing with other children that they're not familiar with.
Yeah.
That could be the situation there as well for why she just buries herself in the book. Engaging book as well, but that could also be something that maybe uh pe- these parents could explore is role play.
Yeah. Absolutely. trial and
Yeah.
error. Try instead of, like, find out what's going on, ask them when it's in an environment that's safe. So you don't want to ask them at the park when they're already embarrassed and they're already like feeling anxiety and shutting down. That's not the time to find out what's going on. So maybe later on in bath time or dinner time, when they're in their safe zone, then you ask
Mhm.
them, what happened at the park today? Did because a lot of them, it has nothing to do with uh being shy. They genuinely don't. I mean, this sounds terrible, but I've talked to kids where they said, I don't really like other kids. Not because they have any
Mhm.
hate. They're like, I don't want to play. I don't play. I want to go and do puzzles by myself, or, like, they genuinely don't actually want to play with other kids. Those happen to be more of the extreme introverts or the Asperger children.
Mhm.
They don't relate, or the autistic children, because they don't relate. But your point is correct, though. You don't know unless you try to figure out what's going on, instead of making them do something that they're uncomfortable with.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, when I talked to some of the children in my family who didn't speak until 4 or older, not that they didn't know how to read or do math. They're doing division by the time they were 3 or 4. So, especially some of the boys. So oftentimes it's just not knowing what to say. So, just stop and say, okay, show me, show me. Then they will walk you over and they will show you because they don't have the words to express because there's so much going on. They don't have the words to express what they're trying to convey.
Yeah.
So instead of expressing what they're trying to convey, sometimes I've found that some of these, especially like boys who are a little slow on the linguistics, they get a little bit aggravated, a little angry, little outbursts because they don't know how to express what they are trying to say because there's so much going on in their mind, but they don't know how to deliver the communication to you. So a really simple thing I always tell parents is show me, just show me,
Hmm.
and then you will be shown, and then you will understand.
Yeah.
You have to understand in that level. Can you tell us more about the Divinely Guided Children Intuitive Wellness Center for Spiritual and Holistic Healing that you founded?
Yeah. So, starting with Intuitive Wellness Center, that's my first business that I created outside of the animals. That I still work out of, which is more focused on adults and healing past. I do one-on-ones, energy healings that are,
Mm-hmm.
working through past life traumas, karma, contracts, cell memory, negative energy, cords, all of those things. So I'm helping the adults work through their past life stuff, but also the current life traumas and
Mm-hmm.
anxieties, depression, pain, all of that. And I teach a lot of. I teach a lot. I really love to teach. And then divinely guided children is something that I've been planning, which my daughter told me I would be doing when I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
That I would create a children's center, and I could visualize it. She showed it to me exactly what it looked like. That's not what I have now, because it was more outdoors. I think that's kind of still manifesting in the future. But the idea was there, and so
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do it much sooner, but because of everything that happened with the pandemic, I waited an extra year, and then December of this past year, I woke up one morning, and my guides were just like, I was half asleep, and they were like, it's time to get the children's center going right now. Like it was a sense of urgency. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I had a million questions. How do I, how am I going to do this? And how am I going to get teachers? I had a million questions. They said, just
Mm-hmm.
one step at a time, get the domain. So and then we'll make the website, then and I did. I just took one step at a time, and
Mm-hmm.
it was crazy because within a 3-week period, no exaggeration, I had a website. I had 12 teachers on board. I was
Mm-hmm.
already advertising. I mean, it was incredible. All these amazing people started walking into my life saying, I want to support this. How can I help? And I want to teach. And so the Divinely Guided Children website, or the center, is geared for these New Earth children to have a place, to have a voice, to
Mm-hmm.
have a place to explore, to learn, to grow, to be supported. And then I realized, gosh, at the same time, I need to also make sure I provide opportunity for the parents to
Yeah.
also learn, because I can't teach. I don't want their children coming home knowing how to do Reiki and then their parents have no idea what it is. Or so then
Mm-hmm.
I do tandem teaching, where I teach the parents
Yeah.
the same thing the kids are learning. And now it's this beautiful kind of cultivation of of family
Mm-hmm.
learning. with a spiritual guidance kind of to it, that really has grown more not more outside of my state than in my state. Like I've gotten so
Mm-hmm.
much interest from people all over the country and all over the world that it became overwhelming for a while back in, the springtime, where I said,
They have you working, lady.
yeah,
They
I've been
have you
very
working.
and I love it though. Like I sometimes I can't believe that this is what I do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
I can support my family and I can work with these amazing kids or these amazing people to help them heal, and
Yeah.
so there are two similar businesses. They're both healing centers, but they're just
Mm-hmm.
guided.
Yeah. Healing centers is the beacon.
Hmm.
That's been going out for the last decade. Healing centers teach healing centers and consciousness.
Yeah.
But what kind of energy healing and consciousness teachings is your staff offering? Can you kind of list out some of the ones that people can look forward to learning?
Yeah. So, okay. So, with regard to the staff and the teachers, they're the ones. So, I have a lot of great teachers that are teaching tarot cards to kids, and crystal gridding and basic
Mm-hmm.
crystal stuff, intuitive eating, all sorts of amazing art. I'm not artistic at all. So, I have great artists and that teach these children different methods of art to channel their creative energy and things like
Right.
that. Music teachers that do sound healing, sound baths, things like that. And so I focus more on the one-on-one energy healing. And then there are certain classes that I'll do. Like I like to teach into Reiki to the children,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they pick it up like that.
Yeah.
And then spiritual stuff, tapping. What does it mean to be spiritual? What are guides? What are angels? What does it mean to have a physical body and a metaphysical body? So like those are the things that I teach more of.
Mm-hmm.
For the adults, you name it. I mean, but my passion right now is to teach healing. So
Mm-hmm.
the two books I have now are more guidebooks, but the third book I'm writing right now is a how to. How
Mm-hmm.
I want everybody out that's watching this or everybody in the world to be able to heal themselves so that they don't need somebody like myself. And I
Yeah,
know I'm
that's the goal. That's the
yeah,
goal.
yeah, and I know I'm not the only one. There's thousands of books out there on how to do
Mm-hmm.
Reiki and things like this. It's just my perspective and my methods, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
writing a book on how to do the timeline healing and merging, how to clear and how to cut energetic cords, how to recognize your vibrational fluctuations, and how to ground yourself, and all of these really cool things.
Right.
And I started doing courses on it. So I teach, 4-week courses
Are they
on.
online too? Are you recording them and then people can purchase them online and learn on their own, or they're all just live?
I have a few basic classes that are pre-recorded that are downloads like Reiki
Okay,
level
that's good.
1. Yeah, so like Reiki level 1 and basic intuitive development connecting to spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like you could download them, do it at your own pace. But the one that I really love right now is a virtual class where it's 4 weeks and I teach it's level 1 Reiki and level 2 it's timeline healing and merging, soul retrieval, Merkabas, and I love that you and I are both into the Merkabas. They're so important.
Yeah, you have a Merkaba on your third eye. I've been
Yes,
watching it form.
yeah. I activate it every day, so I love it when people can see it. I really
Oh
do because
yeah, you can see some of the points. I saw
yeah.
all 5 points. You can see
Oh,
some of the
that's cool.
5 points.
That's amazing.
So if you guys look at her forehead, you can see the 5 points of the Star of David
That's so cool.
Merkaba. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's more of an intensive, it's like a beginner's, intermediate, and advanced course all in once. But I feel like
Mm.
people are ready for it. I feel like people are ready to learn and they are motivated. And so, that's something new that I started offering about 3 months ago.
Right,
Uh,
right. So you're teaching people how to connect to Christ consciousness within themselves, connection
exactly.
to source. And just to remind people, the word Christ in Buddhism is just another word for light. Okay? It's not a person, it's connecting to the light within you,
Yeah.
the higher light.
Yeah.
Um, but so you're teaching a lot of those consciousness teachings. And so please tell us some examples of what you're seeing in your students and their parents who are taking these courses, whether it be online or in person. I mean, can you give us some examples of what kind of growth you're seeing?
Yeah. Oh my God, it's incredible. I mean, I get emails all the time from parents saying my child is night and day different than they were
Mm.
before. The tools that you they learn in the class, or the session that you had, and they after they talked to you, they felt that so confident in themselves, and they
Mhm.
relaxed, and they felt really proud to be who they were, as before they were, very depressed and having anxiety, not really knowing what to do.
Mhm.
To drive. And so I'm seeing that. And then the parents are feeling a lot more relieved and more at peace,
Mhm.
more balanced, because of their children are doing better. So it's this beautiful yin and yang, and
Mhm.
they're learning together. So the children are
Yeah.
opening up these parents, because not all, I would say in the 70s and 80s and 90s, a lot of these children are born into indigo parent families, right? So they're pre-planned to come in to families that would be able to support them, and that were more
A
open.
little more open-minded, not so secular. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit more. And that was purposeful, because then, me, for example, I was raised by parents who were very spiritual, very open, and so that was like normal to me. And so now, as an adult, yeah, I was way more open, and to
Yeah.
all these things. But then what I've been shown is that a lot of the children after 2000, they're not doing they're still coming into spiritual, highly evolved, advanced, or light worker parents, whatever you want to call them, the different things. But they're also being placed strategically, they're being dropped in to families that are not spiritual at all, and those are the ones that call me panicking, because they see me on an interview and say, oh my God, my son told me that he sees, you know um
I
archangels in his
I have
room.
empathy. I have empathy for those children in that kind of like
Yeah.
stuck in stuck in a lower vibe household, because they go through a lot of secular fear,
Hmm.
and limitations.
Yeah,
So
they
a lot of them do fall into addictions when they become teenagers too because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the idea is that they're here to open up their parents, open them up. And, it works a lot of the time, because I've seen
Mm,
it. I'll see the results of the parents saying, I was closed off my whole life, and then my child just opened me up, and now they're having their massive spiritual awakenings, and then
that's good.
and then them and their children are growing together and evolving
That's
together,
good.
and it's so beautiful. But then there are others that are, like you said, are their parents are not opening up, and they are really struggling, and then
So they're
they
shutting
become
down.
numb, and then they close that side of them off, and then they really
Hmm.
struggle.
Wow. Yeah, that's yeah, so how do you help the children who um let's say they accidentally pop in and see this episode, or they find your materials somewhere and they come into those family households that are very strict, very stringent, not very open-minded, you know, to the higher nature of reality and a connection to Christ consciousness within themselves. So they like do you often see them, purchase an online course and kind of secretly do this stuff? I mean, how do they get the assistance and the guidance that they need when they're not getting it from their family household? I mean,
Yeah,
what do
and
you
what it is, Vaughn, a lot of the times is I will get it. This is going to sound crazy, but it is
nothing's crazy.
it's the children's aunt, or, and this happens a lot more than you think, which actually surprised me. I would say, 3 out of 10 people recently that reach out to me, it
Hmm.
is a grandparent of
Mm,
of these children, and they recognize the uniqueness of them, and they see me talk about these children, and they're like, oh my God, that's my grandson, that's my
right.
granddaughter. And then their issue is, but my daughter or my son is completely closed off, and would never allow my child to work with you, or that. And so that becomes the issue. And I'm
What's
seeing
the
that.
fear? What's the fear? There's got to be something for why they feel like this is they're by doing this, they're protecting their child from some unknown fear that they have. What is the common fear that you see with these parents
Well,
regarding these children?
it's not so much fear, it's disbelief, because we have been programmed and manipulated through schooling, through television, through marketing, through every facet, through music, every facet of our life, we have been programmed to be suppressive, to be to listen to what we're told, to not have a voice, to and a lot of people become very disconnected from their soul. We have the physical
Mhm.
body, we have the beautiful life force energy, the soul. There's a disconnect here. So those
Mhm.
people at some point during their life, they got put down so many times, or their vibration became so low,
Right.
lost connection with their soul, and so it's a disbelief. They don't actually believe in anything that I'm talking about. They don't think it's true, or they've been so heavily ingrained in religion, that there's a disbelief, and a disconnect there, because, well, my, it doesn't say this in the Bible, so it can't be true, or my priest says that this is impossible, or my rabbi, and I hear that, actually. And I'm not one to argue with these people. My journey is not about convincing anybody. It's all about a resonance and discernment, and if they resonate with what I'm saying, then that's a beautiful thing. But if they don't, then I'm not in the journey to convince anybody. That's just, I don't want that burden. So my hope is that those children find me through another avenue, or they get older and they separate from that, or I plant enough seeds that the parents at some point wake up. And
Mhm.
it does. Sometimes it takes them a while. I've had grandparents reach out to me and say, I really want my granddaughter to see you. The mom won't let me. And then I say, you know what, just give her space. You do what you can to influence your granddaughter's life in any way you can, positively. Love her, encourage her, support her. That's what's the best thing you can do right now. And then,
Mhm.
9 months or a year later, I get a call and the mom's reaching out to me. I want to talk to you. I'm ready for a session, because something happened in her
What
life.
happened? What happened that triggered the change? There's usually
Well,
something that triggers it.
yeah. And, I'll have to think of an example specifically, but a majority of the time is they experience their own awakening somehow, that has nothing to do with their child, some
Mm.
experience that they have in their life, or the loss of somebody, or COVID, was a big one for people. A lot of people
Yeah.
in the last year. And so I would say,
The
50,
fallback from COVID is the
yeah,
health the
yeah.
health agenda.
That woke up a lot. I can't tell you how many people have woken up in the last year that
Mhm.
have contacted me, and they literally say in the email, I am newly woken up. A year ago, I would have never talked to you. And so there's a mass awakening happening right now, that is huge and pivotal to our evolution. So a lot of those parents are coming around, but unfortunately, it has nothing to do with their children. It has something
Mhm.
to do with their environment or their life that triggers it. And then they look back at their children and they're like, oh my gosh, because our children are our greatest teachers. If we just
Yeah.
give them the opportunity to speak and we listen to what they have to say, because they have so much wisdom and so much knowledge, that a lot of times you will be surprised by what comes out of their mouth, or what they have
Yeah.
to say, or how
Well,
they.
let me ask you about that in terms of the information that comes from the children, because you have to remember they are still children, so they need to know how to navigate um, the elements of society and reality to be able to do what they want to do. So, you know, how do you advise parents who have these children to listen to the information coming through, but then also guide the child a pathway that can work with the resources available so that they can create that into fruition,
Yeah.
whatever that is that they want to do.
Yeah, and it's really all about, has a lot to do with respect, and kind of like this equal balance between the two. And
Hmm.
so what I always tell people is, or how I work with my children, I'll give you an
Hmm.
example.
Yes, please.
I teach them. I'm very loving, supportive, kind, and I encourage them to speak their mind. If they get it, if I say they can't do something, I will take the extra effort and explain to them exactly why they can't do something. I give them choices instead of telling them what to do. I say, okay, you have the choice between A and B. Which one would you prefer? So we need to
Hmm.
make them feel like they have some sort of a choice. They gain
Right.
confidence from it. But then I also teach my children about respect, and that I know you're a beautiful, a lot of things to do in this life, and I know I have a lot to learn from you, but remember, I am mommy in this life. You chose me to be your mom, so you have to learn from me as well. And so let me please guide you, and support you. And there are times where we're not going to agree about certain things,
Mm-hmm.
but so it's a conversation. You know, when my son was my middle one again was gosh, he was like 2 or 3 years old, and he was
Mm-hmm.
really having a hard time. I mean, it terrible.
Mm-hmm.
He was like throwing things, and I connected to his
Yeah.
higher. I said, "What is going on with you?" And he admitted to me that he just really was struggling. He did not like being a toddler. He didn't. He just was really struggling. He said, "I
Mm-hmm.
don't like this." And he said, "Please don't talk to me like I'm a child." Because I said, "What can I do?" And he said, "Don't yell at me, and don't talk to me like don't talk down to me like I'm a child. I'm not a child. I am in the moment, and I understand that, but please don't talk to me that way." And I stopped, and things worked out better where I got into their level, his level or their level, and I have a conversation, and I take the time to explain myself to them, because
Mm-hmm.
it's all about just like you would take the time to explain to your spouse or your friend or your teacher or confidant about your perspective on a certain situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's about allowing them the opportunity to do the same thing with boundaries. So it's all about respect, mutual
Yep.
respect, love, support, boundaries. um so allowing them the opportunity to speak their mind, and they know that is going to prevent them from breaking down and screaming, and
Right.
alternatively saying something they don't mean, throwing a toy across the room, doing something bad. If you had just stopped it before that and given them,
Right.
okay, go ahead, Skylar, speak. What you don't agree with me? Tell me what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's all they want. They just want to feel like they're respected, because in their mind they know in a higher consciousness that they are evolved, advanced souls with a lot of wisdom. But then
Right.
we have to remind them, yes, you are, but you are a child in this life. So give me the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to guide you
Yep.
and teach you as well, because I'm also on this earth right now, long in this life, longer than you. I have experience,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's a give and take there.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing is that their conscious sometimes their consciousness, like like you've heard the phrase old soul, like an old man or old lady in the in a baby's body, all these different cute little concepts, but at the end of the day they are still children, and so they don't necessarily know that it's you know there are some things that you need the parents to guide you on, like look both ways before you cross the street. Like don't just go to every single dog, because not every single dog is going to be friendly. They might nip at you and
Yeah,
scratch you in the face. Even the puppy. So I mean those kind of nuances about our current reality that they naively don't understand, because they are still children. So there
yeah,
is quite a bit of parenting involved with these children.
yeah,
So medicating like crazy or just putting them in timeout like crazy is just going to aggravate and blow up at you,
yeah,
because it is a continual parenting process.
yeah,
So they do require um, the utmost parenting, because
yeah,
they are very, very light years ahead in their consciousness, but they just don't realize exactly that you're still in these little bodies, and there's still some elements of parenting and guidance that you need as well, so that
yeah,
you don't hurt yourself or
absolutely.
get everybody else in trouble. The Yeah, so we're talking really about discernment and boundaries. Two of my favorite topics in Buddhism is discernment and boundaries. So with these children having sixth senses or learning different abilities through your school or just coming to it on their own, discernment and boundaries is a fundamental concept. So how do you teach these children and their parents about discernment and boundaries? Because uh, they can, until it becomes common day, they can kind of freak some people out.
Yes, they can. Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because discernment is one of the biggest things I'm teaching right now to the adults, not even just the children, because we've been so disconnected from ourselves that we don't know what our truth is. We can't
Mhm.
tap into our higher awareness, our intuition, to that really is that part of us that knows what's right and wrong for you. And so and we're not our radars are off. We don't know that we're in a relationship with a bad person that's going to manipulate and harm you, and so or that politician or that teacher or someone in your life may not have your best interests at heart, and you're not if you don't have that judgment or that discernment to recognize the signs, then
Mhm.
are going to be, you're going to have a difficult time. And so right now, the most important aspect of living and ascension and evolving is reconnecting people with their higher guidance system so that they have
Hmm.
the ability to use discernment in every aspect of life. In
Right.
anything that we do, we need to use discernment. And so whether or not, we feel funny about going out on the highway today, maybe there's an accident that your higher self is trying to say, hey, don't go that
Yeah.
way. Or,
Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Yeah.
exactly,
Hmm.
listen, we're trying to, there's a sign, there's a signal trying to come to you. And if
Hmm.
we're in a low vibration, we don't have discernment. It's not possible. We're disconnected.
Yeah.
And so for children, I try to teach that in a more simplified way, because that's confusing to them. They don't understand. So I
Yeah.
really try to do and convince, or not convince, guide parents to give their children activities that will connect to their higher guidance system, so then they will have more discernment. So it's about grounding them, having them go outside, be back in nature, play with crystals, play with the dirt, play with, if you're not allergic, pet animals, doing creative art projects,
Yeah.
all of the things that will ground and balance you, will create a higher frequency, will connect you to your higher self. And these children will have the discernment, because as a result of that, they don't have to try.
Well, let me ask you this. This is really hard. It's great to discern, certain things that could be harmful, but people are the hardest thing to have discernment and boundaries on. And there's a lot of psychics, mediums, channelers, and gurus who kind of they navigate to these children and they kind of use them as a freak show aspect, like, oh, look what I found, check this out, whatever. And it usually doesn't turn out well in the long term, because they're just regular people living their life. They just happen to have some um, extrasensory abilities that they brought with them from whatever dimension they had previously incarnated from. But how do parents discern and teach these children to discern people who are of integrity as compared to people who may be misguided or manipulate or use them?
Yeah.
That's the
This one's one.
hardest one.
It is the hardest one, but I will say that the kids have the easiest ability to do that. And the reason
Mm,
is because they can tap into energy. They read energy, and they're very easily, and they're human lie detectors. They know
mm,
when a person is lying to them. They know if somebody walks in the room that is not in a high vibration, that is angry or upset, that there's a ripple effect of the vibration that person
right.
gives off, that goes into this child's energy field, and they feel it immediately. I did a session recently with a little child. This child told me, please tell my parents that if I'm in a situation where I tell them I'm uncomfortable with a person, that please don't make me be nice to them. Don't make me go and sit with them. Don't make me, because I am trying to articulate to them that there's a reason they make me uncomfortable. And
Hmm.
it was so wisdom filled, and it made so much sense. And when I explained it to the mom, she almost started to cry, because she said, I do that. I we were so taught to respect your elders, and so she would say, stop, stop being like that, go talk to, go talk to that man, or don't be shy, be nice. And the child was uncomfortable for a reason, and we have to pay attention to those
Hmm.
signs, because children do have a lot more discernment when it has to do with people than actually other things. um,
Right.
they're
Right.
easily able to read energy of other people. And so, just like animals, the animals are able to tap into that higher awareness as well. That's why animals know immediately if they feel comfortable with someone or they don't. But
Hmm.
as they get older, then they have more intuitive abilities to understand it more. So if you're 2 year old and you are forced to be around someone that makes you uncomfortable, they're going to show you this in weird mannerisms, like hiding behind mom's leg or not talking, because
Hmm.
they don't really have the voice yet. They don't know what to say. So
Yeah, they don't
that's,
have the talk tracks.
yeah, exactly. Talk. I
Hmm.
love that. I love the talk tracks. But then maybe the same thing happens, and then the girl is now 10 years old, and so she's gonna start saying certain things, and then the
Hmm.
mom's gonna be like, "Stop being rude. Don't be rude. Don't talk like that." And again, maybe not the right way to say it, but at least she's coming up with the words. And you see, as they evolve and they mature,
Right.
they have a better way of articulating it, and if they feel supported at a young age, and then the parents are fostering that ability for them to understand, recognize, and also trust their
Yeah.
intuition.
Yeah. Your children should be, you should be talking to them early on and have a conversation. I recommend this for all parents and all adults who engage with children is to have conversations. Just be like, what you do, how's your day? Can you know, explain that, whatever. But they should they should be comfortable coming to you and saying, can I talk to you about something? And be like, sure, what's going on? Can I show you something? Sure, show me, those kind of things. And they should be comfortable in doing that. If they're not comfortable in doing that, then you have a communication problem, and then you need to work on that because what you're expressing and explaining is what I call conditioning.
Hmm.
From early on, we have conditioned children to be a certain way because we think this is what is polite, we think this is how they're supposed to be, and then we condition them so much into a certain way of expressing themselves, which is non-expressive. And then all of a sudden, when they become adult, they need to be able to find their voice.
Yep. And they have a closed throat chakra, and they don't have a voice, and they have a really hard time speaking their mind
Yeah.
about anything, just about anything.
Most women have thyroid issues as adults.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
right.
So we have to really understand that you do this in every little single little way on a constant basis with children is you are conditioning them to be a certain way when they become adults, and then you wonder why they are not meeting up to certain standards. Like why can't you speak in public? Why can't you express yourself clearly? Why can't you just say no when you don't want to? I mean, these things that many people struggle as adults to do, and it's because of that conditioning of behavior that they have learned from their family, their friends, society, all
Yeah.
growing up that have fueled a certain behavior in their personality, and now they wonder why it's so hard for them to do what they want to do or to say what they want to say or to not do what they don't want to do. So that's an exercise for parents is to catch yourself when you start throwing a little penny of certain conditioning into the bucket and designing the child's personality around certain themes. So I hope people are really listening to what you're saying, Sherri, because what you're saying is from early on we are conditioning children not to speak up
Yeah.
and not to speak their truth, and then wondering why they struggle later on.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And my biggest advice, if this is the last thing I say tonight, and the most important thing parents pick up, and I teach this, and I all the time to the parents that I work with, do not um, punish your child for doing something that how would I say this? For doing something that you would have done differently. We cannot
Mm,
we cannot put ourselves in our children's shoes and judge them based on what we would have done in that situation. Okay,
mm,
so you're a 30, 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old person. You have a lot of life experience. So of course you would have made a different decision. It's almost as if people forget what it's like to be a child.
yep.
And I'll tell you, Vaughn, I'm a 40-year-old woman, and I still know how it is exactly. I have a 16-year-old son. I tell him all the time, Jordan, I know how I trust me. I know
Mm-hmm.
more about how it is to be a 16-year-old than a 40-year-old. I understand everything you're going through. My 6-year-old, my 8-year-old, my 6-year-old, I understand what it's like
Yeah.
to be in that position. I have not forgotten that. So
Yeah.
I would never judge them on what they do based on what I think they should have done, because it's not my journey, it's theirs. And that's the biggest issue that parents struggle with, is they judge them on what they think they should have done. And we
Mm-hmm.
can't, we have to stop that right now. We have
Yeah.
to encourage them to make their own life choices, their own decisions. And
Yeah.
if it's different than what you would want, that is okay.
Yeah. Well, the parents have been conditioned as well from their
Exactly.
upbringings, and that's where it came from. Why didn't you get the college education? Why didn't you buy the house at this time? Why didn't you get married to that person? I mean, there's a picture
Yeah.
that people have been sold as part of their upbringing and their conditioning that they just unconsciously are passing on to the next generation, and this generation doesn't fall into that bucket. With regards to the courses that you offer online and in person at your wellness center for parents and for children, energy healing is the most popular one. And it's so relevant right now because, we kind of have a sickly population, and we'll probably get some more in the near future. So, how would these children apply energy healing to a sickly population in the next decade?
You mean to take care of themselves or to help with others?
Both, both.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think Reiki should be taught in elementary school as a basic
Mm,
education, along with, health, health
mm,
science or whatever they call it these days,
yeah,
because they know innately what it is, how to use it, and our medical industry is shifting and changing as well.
yeah,
So, primary medicine will be holistic, acupuncture, herbal medicine, energy healing, all of that will become primary. It will reverse, and all the other stuff is going to become secondary. And so, these children, uh, knowing that early on is going to help them so much because that's the direction that we're headed. And a lot of
right,
these children, what I've been told, um, especially divine children and the newer ones that are coming in after 2000 and 2019, 18, 19, they're not going to respond to a lot of the pharmaceuticals or the current medical treatments. So
right.
these parents are going to have no choice but to seek an alternative method of
Hmm.
healing, acupuncture, whatever, energy healing. Like
Last
they,
resource. Energy healing is always the last resource for some
yeah,
reason.
exactly.
Knock,
And
knock.
yeah, and that's changing. And so these children are inspiring their parents to actually look into it, and they pick it up so easily. So
Yeah.
it not only helps themselves because Reiki can do so many things. It can help them with stress, anxiety, help them sleep, help them when during their hormonal like teen
Hmm.
uncomfortable age years.
Yeah.
It helps them with focus, balance, drive, ground. It grounds you. I mean, you name it, Reiki does it. What else
Yeah.
out there does that? There isn't anything else that
Yeah.
does that. So them learning it at a young age, their parents. I used to be real big on teaching all new parents Reiki.
Hmm.
Every parent should know because it will help those colicky kids, the children that are having trouble sleeping, the colic, all the adjustments that their body's having to live, right?
Hmm.
To thrive, you
Right.
know. So it helps everybody in all facets of life. And so that's really where I feel like it's going. So everybody should be learning Reiki for free in school starting at a young age so that they already know at a young age how to heal themselves. To
Yeah.
me, it's a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer. Everybody should know how to do energy healing on themselves, on pets. Pets to start, the pets is the easy one for children. They do the pets.
Yeah.
And then, and then people. But it is a very, very helpful thing. And you know what that is? That's based energy healing is quantum healing. And that energy, that higher frequency, higher wave energy comes from the light within. It comes from source. So all of our molecules, they've already proven it is in science that all of the human atoms and molecules basically are wave patterns of light that create form. And so if you want to influence it, you change the signal that it is receiving. Hence, you go into a higher frequency. So, like energy frequency, and this they're starting to study this in medicine, where they do energy frequency and sound waves and so forth into human cells and into different groups of um, patients or clients that are ill for different things, and seeing a lot of positive results from that. But basically, it's energy healing. It's source doing the healing through the conduit, and it's a great thing that the children are learning and comes natural to them. So when they're doing this with your school, do you organize field trips and group excursions
Oh gosh, that is
and
no,
fun
I
stuff?
don't yet, but that is right in line with kind of my manifesting for the future because I have talked to a lot of people that live all over the country and actually even outside of the country
Hmm.
who heard me say on a podcast that I would love to create spiritual retreats for these children and they're like I have a horse farm or I'm in Ecuador I have a spiritual center I'd love to have
Right?
kids. That is where I would love to go. It's haven't
Do
gotten
a
that.
family vacation, a family excursion.
Yeah, that's exactly what I have envisioned as kind of
Yeah.
the steps, but I don't offer it as of yet, but it will be coming, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think that's going to be so much fun because, a lot of families are looking for family vacations that they can go to. And if you have this week we're going to go to Ecuador in this horse ranch, and then these are the workshops that we're going to do along with these family excursions, and yada yada yada, and you offer them. A
Yeah.
lot of people will love that, where they can take their child and go on a family trip and learn something new that benefits them all. So
Yes.
I see that in your near future too, and that's going to be a fun one. I think that's where you were intended to go in the beginning.
I
You
think
had
so.
to you had to build up the basics to get there, but you'll get there. It's going to be fun. So do you have a last message for the builders of fifth dimension Earth and above?
Oh man, don't give up. Be yourself. Don't conform to society's norms. You are unique. You're the way you are for a reason. Follow your passions and find peace within yourself. And your light is so bright that just visualize how much you are affecting the world in a positive way. And the brighter your light is, the more people that you can affect. And that's such a beautiful thing. It's just, keep going, don't give up, have faith in yourself, and don't let anyone dim your light, ever. Don't ever let anybody dim your light.
Yeah, yeah. Very, 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 very good last message. Well, Sherry, thank you for opening a holistic healing center for parents and their children to learn about all these wonderful healing modalities and consciousness teachings. So, for more information about the Divinely Guided Children Center's books, offerings, and courses, either in person and online, please visit their website, which is divinelyguidedchildren.com. And thank you kindly to our listeners for listening to another enlightening conversation. Until next time, blessings.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension. For more information about today's guest, please go to the show description. For more information about Vaughn's metaphysical work, please go to merkabachakras.com. The views expressed today are for entertainment purposes and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or replace any medical or legal advice. Don't forget to subscribe for more interviews about the fifth dimension. Until we meet again, blessings.